Hello and welcome to Cover, a verse by verse study through the Bible, and I'm David. And I'm always glad that you are always tuned in. And we are working our way through the book of Genesis. Currently, we are in Genesis chapter 10. And as we started looking at this chapter last time, Genesis chapter 10 is just a minefield. I mean, there's so much inside there, even though people really read at this chapter because of the names, and some are difficult to pronounce, and you're wondering if they're relevant today. You know, the beauty of going through the Bible verse by verse is that you're able to go through everything, even the things that you think are not important, the things that you'd really get time to listen to any sermon being preached on. You have an opportunity to just have a time and look at all the details, you know, because they are all necessary. Everything in the Bible is necessary for us to know and to learn, because the entire Bible is God-breathed, the entire Bible is inspired, the entire Bible is beneficial for us. And last time we started looking at the descendants of Noah. We saw that the question that Genesis chapter 10 answers is the question that you do not find it in any other ancient literature. Genesis chapter 10 is a standalone. Not any piece of literature can be close to it. It is the only literature in the world that gives the origin of nations. And we started looking, we looked at the two sons of Noah. We saw Noah had 3 sons and they had died. So we started looking at the genealogy of these sons, and we looked at the son Japheth that we agreed settled majorly in the European countries, in the European nations. And then we looked at the second son called Ham. We saw that Ham settled majorly in Africa, you know. And we saw that one of the sons of Ham is called the Canaan. And Canaan gave birth to many sons, most of whom were destroyed when the children occupied went and took over the territory in the land of Canaan, as God directed them, you know, through Moses and Joshua. We shall come to the stories as we move along. But one son of Canaan survived, and they are called the Sinites. And as we looked last time, these are the current Chinese, and that's why you get the word Sino in most of the Chinese company. You have maybe Sinotruk, you have Sino Hydro, you have Sino so and so, because those are the companies that are related to China. And by the way, there is another proof that the gospel, everybody around the world have an idea of the Bible and these stories. For example, the Chinese, even though they look like they are far from Christianity, if you look at their language, the ancient language of the Chinese, you will find the stories in Genesis kind of coded right there. And I will just show you a few examples that are a little bit quite intriguing. Look, for example, how they write the word boat. You know, you see that the word boat has 3 signs. You find that it has the word vessel, then it has the word 8, and then it has the symbol vessel 8, and then it has the symbol people. So you see, for you to get the word boat in Chinese, because the Chinese, they write in using symbols. You got the symbol of a vessel, you have 8, and you have people. What does it show you? This is the story of Noah. How could they have known this? They must have been part of this story, this history. As they were going to wherever they went to, they went with this thing engraved in their minds. They know that the first time the word boat was ever built in the world, it had 8 people. Look at the way they write the word to desire or to covet. Yeah? It has 2 symbols. The 2 trees, you can see the trees there, the 2 trees, and then woman, that's the symbol of woman. The 2 trees and the woman, when they put them together, guess out what that reads? To covet or to desire. Again, is it a coincidence? No, it's because they knew what happened in the Garden of Eden. Look the way they write the word to forbidden. You know, forbidden, again, has 2 trees and God. Interesting. You know, two trees and God is read as forbidden in Chinese, and look the way they write the word create, it's just they have the symbol to speak, dust or mud, life, and then walk. Create, exactly the way God created the world. So you are seeing from this that these are the indication that there is no language, there is no civilization in the world that didn't originate from Genesis chapter 10. Everybody, the 7.8 billion people in the world, they all came from the family of Noah. Of course, now the question you might be asking yourself is, how did the races come about? We have the black people, we have the white, we have all this. We'll come to that. Just hang along. Today, we are going to look at the third son of Noah. This one is the most important because this lineage is going to be followed throughout the Bible, the Shem line. So today we are in Genesis 10, and we are starting from verse 21. And children were born unto Shem, the father of all the children of Eber, the brother of Japheth, the elder. Now, Shem is the father of Eber. Eber, that is the same word that will later be known as Hebrew. Eber turned to Hebrew. So, this is the lineage where we also get the children of Israel, the descendants. In fact, even to date, the children of Israel are called Semites. And if you are against the Israelites, it's called anti-Semitism. Anti-Semites. Who are the Semites? The children of Israel. Why Semites? Because they are from Shem. It's Shemites. Now it is Semites. You see? So the lineage of Shem, up to date, the Israelites are still holding, that word Shem in their name. So we see the children were born to Shem. The father of all the children were Eber or Hebrew. That's again the word Hebrew. As I've said, the brother of Japheth, the elder. Remember, Japheth was the eldest. Then verse 22. The sons of Shem were Elam, Ashur, Arphaxad, Lud, and Aram. Now here again, you see Elam. Elam will come up again. You remember when we'll come to Genesis around chapter 14 there, we will see Lot being separated with Abraham, and then he will be abducted. There are some kings that would come to fight against Sodom and Gomorrah, and they would abduct many people and take property. One of the people who would be abducted is Lot. Guess one of the kings that came to battle against Sodom and Gomorrah? King of Elam, the Elamites. So we see them here as well. So the sons of Shem were Elam, Ashur, Arphaxad. Arphaxad is where we are going to get Abraham come from that. Lud and Aram. The sons of Aram were Uz. Now you remember Uz? Well, if you don't know, you will come to that when you come to the book of Job. Job chapter 1 and verse 1. It starts by saying, now there was a man from the land of Uz or Az, depending how you want to pronounce it. In fact, this is one of the reasons why the book of Job is one of the oldest books in the Bible. Job is thought to have lived somewhere around the time of Abraham. And the book of Job is interesting. You learn a lot from it by what it doesn't say rather than what it says. You never hear anything about the captivity in Egypt. You never hear anything about the wilderness, nothing about the kings and the idol worship that Israel practiced. It is a very old book, but we know that it is from Uz or Az, which is one of the sons of Aram. The sons of Aram were Uz. We have Hul, Gether, and Mash. Azakfad begot Salah. Salah begot Eber. We got the word Hebrew. To Eber were born two sons. The name of one was Peleg, for in his days the earth was divided, and his brother's name was Joktan. Now let's follow a bit there. This Peleg guy is a rather interesting one because we are given a description about why he is called Peleg. Peleg means division, and we are told it is because in his day the earth was divided. Now there are two thoughts about this, what it exactly means that Peleg was born when the earth was divided. One group of thought thinks that it is the splitting of the continents. Remember we saw in the flood that when the Bible says God opened the deep, and the fountains of the deep ripped apart, and I believe that's when the continents were ripped apart. Now we get different continents moving in different directions, and so some people think that this is what is referred to here. Another group thinks that this division that is talked about on Peleg is the separation of people at the Tower of Babel. You remember when they were building a tower. We'll be doing that probably in our next study. And God came down and confounded the languages, and people are divided, and they started speaking different languages. So something that is the time when Peleg was born. And I tend to agree that that probably is the thing here. I would go with this one. I believe that Peleg was born around that time. The Tower of Babel was built, if you do calculation, about 100 and 106 years after the flood. And that's where we got this guy, Peleg, being born. And during that time, the languages were confounded, and it's an interesting phenomenon that we shall come to in our next study. So the name of one was Peleg, for in his day the earth was divided, and his brother's name was Joktan. Joktan begot Al-Modad, Shelef, Hazarmaveth, Jaran, Doram, Zal, Dikla, Obal, Abimael, Sheba, Ophir, Havelab, and Jobab. And these were the sons of Joktan. And their dwelling places was from Mesha as you go toward Shephar, the mountain on the east. These were the sons of Shem, according to their families, according to their languages, in their lands, according to their nation. You know, one thing interesting about the divisions that the Lord is always emphasizing is that people are divided according to, 1, their families, 2, their languages, 3, their land, and lastly, their nations. Nowadays, people, you find people segregating themselves on the basis of race, you know, the skin color. This is not mentioned anywhere in the Bible. In fact, there is not a group of people that the Bible recognizes based just on their race. The Bible recognizes groups based on their tribes, based on their nations, based on their land, and based on their families. Those are the distinctions that God is using in His Word. And those are the distinctions that we're supposed to use. In fact, when we come into the book of Revelation, when we people getting saved, you will never hear that saved from all races. No, it is saved from all nations and from all tribes and from all languages. So the issue of race is quite an interesting one. Where did the races come from? I mean, if we all came from Noah, then how come some are so dark, some are so bright? Is it possible that there's a different lineage? Could African and European have the same descent, the same grandfather? We look at that when we come back. This is Cover to Cover. I am David Adede. Hi, this is Cover to Cover. I am David Adede. Please subscribe to our channel. Also remember to click that bell so that you can be notified whenever we upload a new video. Welcome back to Cover, a verse by verse study through the Bible. I'm David Adede. We are going through Genesis. We are in chapter 10. We just finished looking at the family, the last son of Noah, the family of Shem, or Semites, and the way the Israelites are still known today as the descendants of as Semites. So we've concluded in verse 32. These were the families of sons of Noah, according to their generations, in their nations, and from these the nations were divided on the earth after the flood. Wow! This statement has been disputed by many people. And the question is, where did races come from if all these families came from one, all these nations came from one family? Is it possible that there was another race apart from the one that people know about? Not really. In fact, genetical studies have now able to explain, are now been able to explain the origin of the races. When people look at the races, what appears so much in a person, what is mostly pronounced is the skin color. They don't look at the color of your eyes, they don't look at the height, they don't look at your weight. They would first and foremost see your skin color. And that's why people have been having the temptation to group people based on the color of their skin. In fact, just as you were saying, there have been false teaching that the Africans are black because they were cast. Nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, the color of your skin has nothing to do with the blessing or curse. And if anything, as we saw last time, Ham was never cursed. It was his son, Canaan, who was cursed, you see. So where did the skin color come from? Well, this is a very simple biological thing. But those who don't understand it have used it to spread even some very weird philosophies. And evolution specifically cannot explain the skin color. And that's why the likes of Darwin have come up with very absurd statements. For example, in this statement in his book, The Descent of Man, it says, at some future period, not very distant, as measured by centuries, the civilized races of man will almost certainly exterminate and replace the savage races throughout the world. At the same time, the anthropological apes will no doubt be exterminated. The break between man and his nearest allies will then be wider, for it will intervene between man in a more civilized state. And some apes, as low as baboon instead of now, between the Negro or Australian and the Gorillian. This is a very, very disturbing statement. And what Darwin is saying is simple. He's saying that man and apes are very close together. And he's saying that there are some races that are in between man and apes. So he's looking at the skin and he's saying the Negroes or the Australians he's saying is between man and apes are still evolving. So they are saying if you are so much backward, then you are an ape. If you've evolved a little bit, then you are maybe a Negro. But in some time when you evolve completely, then you'll become maybe a European. This is ridiculous. And even they were using some photos. You can see, for example, here they are saying that the missing link has been discovered. What they were actually giving, what they are saying are missing links, are actually, these are people who are living in an island. What is about the skin color? It's all about melanin. And if you do genetics, there is something beneath the skin which is called melanin, as you can see. And these are shades of skin. Shades of skin depends on the amount of melanin it has been produced. If you have a lot of melanin, then you have a dark skin color. For example, I would like to use these ones, these letters A, B capital, then AB as small, AB small caps. Now let's assume that capital A and capital B are lots of melanin, then small a and small b are little melanin. So let's look at this diagram of what Adam and Eve could have been. Adam and Eve definitely had all this information in their DNA. Sometime we talked about DNA in the past, and we saw how DNA has information. Some information are activated, some are not activated. But when you go to a place where an information needs to be activated, then DNA activates that information and you are able to adapt to your environment. For example, those who are living around the very high temperature regions, their skin must produce high level of melanin so they are able to survive that amount of heat. Those who are in very cold places, their skin would produce little melanin so that they are, because they don't need it. That is how God has designed our bodies and our DNAs to react. Now, going back to this diagram, you see, Adam and Eve, they had the information capital B, capital A. There's a lot of melanin. Then they had the information was small a, small b, that is little melanin. Now, those who are, when you give birth, as genetics and biology would tell you, you are going to have, you have a possibility of having a number of children. Some children can take only a lot of melanin, the information capital A, capital B from both parents. They will be very dark. You know, capital A, capital B, capital A, capital B, very dark. Another child might take capital A, capital B, capital A, and a small b from one parent, just one letter small. That person will not be very dark. Someone might just take capital A and capital B, and then take also a small a and a small cap b. That person will be just right in the middle. But someone might take just the small letters only. You take the small letter A, small letter B from the father, small letter A, small letter B from the mother. This person would be very light-skinned, what we call whites today. We only have shades of brown. We have a darker shade, we have a lighter shade, but all of it is brown. But these are the information that we are always confusing right from Sunday school, where we let our children to sing that, you know, this song that says, God loves the little children, all the children of the world, black and yellow. I mean, red and yellow, black and white. You know, that black and white, I think it should be shades of brown, from dark to bright. They are precious in His sight. You know, so there is always the shade of brown that is being given depending on where you are, depending on the genetical information. And now look at these are now example that we can see. This couple is probably the ideal couple that represent Adam and Eve. See, the mother is mid-brown and the father is also mid-brown. So they are having in their genes both dark and bright colors. They are having the whites and the blacks, if you like. So one child, these are twins by the way, you know, one child is black and another one is white. How could this happen if they were to be separated by evolution? You know, this information was in the parents. It is inbuilt information. These are all twins that we are seeing, and the photos are all over the world. And this is very, very interesting. Look, for example, Alicia and Jasmine. You know, these are all twins. These are all twins. Bill and George had a kidney transplant. You know. And it is just interesting. How could you transfer a kidney from someone who is not of your race and make it and is still going to work on another race? If it were truly the way the evolution says that races are different, then that would not work. So anybody that is judging anyone, based on the skin color or on the race are very ignorant genetically and even historically. But you see, the Bible already says it, that all people all over the world are just one race. Are just one race. We only have different shades of brown, but we are one race. Of course, there's something called genetical bottleneck. What happens is that if you have brown people together, then their descendants are most likely going to be brown. But if you have black people again together, they are mostly going to be black. But once in a while, you'll get in the brown population, the very white population, you get a black from white parents. And in a very, even a black African population, you get a child that is almost white. And you're wondering what happens. It is because that information is always there. So the idea of race should not be used against anybody or to discriminate anybody. It is not scientific. The science has really disproved that theory. As you can see, it is saying that the idea of race and humanity has completely been found to be wanting. It is not scientific, it's not biological, it is not genetical. Those who are studying the genetics will tell you that it is just something that doesn't, it should not even be featuring anywhere in our discussion. So what am I saying? All the races in the world, they originated from Noah. It is genetically proven that it is possible, and even today, from the pictures that you have seen, you can see for yourself that it doesn't take rocket science or evolution to get a bright colored person or a dark colored person. All it takes is just the activation of the gene, that specific information in the gene to produce bright or to produce dark. But it has nothing to do with your character. It has nothing to do with everything. Of course, people would behave differently. If you go to some place, you find a group of people behaving in a certain way. You can go to maybe some island where people are certain race or skin tone and they're behaving differently. The behavior is not a result of the skin color. It is a result of the culture. So the cultural things, cultural bringing can make us act differently, can make us behave differently, can make us look a little bit different, but it has nothing to do with the skin color. And the day we get this off our mind and start to embrace everybody as one race, a lot of problems will be solved and the unity of humanity will come back as God intended it. So we thank you so much for watching today. I believe you learned something. Always ask your friends, relatives to tune in and so that they can watch together, they can be blessed together as we go through this powerful book of the Bible, the book of Genesis. And our next program, we come to chapter 11, the Tower of Babel, the origin, now not of races, but of languages. This has been Cover to Cover. I've been your host, David Adede. Until next time, God bless you.